Okay, so let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the session on CV and resume writing. My name is Charmika Dahanayaka and I'll be the resource person for this session. So let me begin by talking to you a little bit about the objective of today's session. But before that, can you also let me know whether you can see my slides? Are the slides visible? Okay, thank you very much to all of you. Right, so let's get started. Let me quickly remind you why we are doing this session. Since CS Sri Lanka is hosting their job fair and career fair, I think today's session is going to be very helpful to all of you if you are aiming to take part in the job fair, job and career fair hosted by the CS Sri Lanka. So I hope all of you will get the maximum benefit of today's session. So in order for us to do that, I would like all of you to be very active. Please don't consider this to be another recording or a one-way discussion. This is about all of you. So if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, please ensure you are interacting with me. You can use your chat function and send me any questions that you have. And also you can use your microphone if you feel like it and you want to ask me a question. So feel free to interact and be very active because we are going to do a lot of fun activities, things for you to consider, and also to ensure that you come up with a really enhanced CV for the job market, current job market, right? So towards the end of the session, I'm going to share very, very interesting, updated, latest trends that are happening with CV writing across the world. So I would seriously suggest that you should stick around till the end of the session because we have only 2 hours to do. So again, let me remind you, please feel free to interact with me, ask questions, do the activities, share answers, right? Any doubts or problems that you have, because we are doing this session purely for your benefit. So let's get started then, right? So session objectives, I'm not going to go through everything, but I think you will get a fairly good idea about what we are going to cover today. We will talk about resumes, CVs, how to ensure that your CV is something people in the job market will consider as really standing out, right? Something your CV needs to stand out from the rest. So we will discuss the techniques to update your CV. What should a great CV include, right? How to make it unique. And we will also talk about the connection between relatively unknown areas, like the connection between job adverts and your CV. A lot of people, I think, um, do not know what is the connection between these two things. I mean, I think people very rarely look at the job adverts in a critical way. So today we will talk about the connection between job adverts and your CV. We will also talk about the latest trends and what's happening around the world because with the impact of AI, I'm sure you are aware that there are a lot of changes that are happening to CV writing and the recruitment process. So we will talk a little bit about those latest developments as well. Okay, so I seriously encourage all of you as much as possible to devote these 2 hours because this is going to be a very, very unique opportunity for you to interact and learn something at a very deep level. So my suggestion, if possible, okay, if possible, please try not to get the recordings only and then, stay out of the session because I think it's through participating in the live session, you can get a lot of knowledge that you cannot probably get from watching a recording. Okay, because remember, I'm always here. I keep on telling all my students that you're here to learn communication. So, communication is a topic that cannot be learned through recordings. So, I encourage all of you, if possible, I do understand if you're busy, but if possible, try to stick to these 2 hours and spend it effectively. Then you will see a drastic improvement in the way you present your CV, but also you will learn a lot extra things that you never thought by interacting with me online, right? And the reason that we are having a live session is also because then it's easier for us to interact, talk, discuss things, okay, rather than just watching a passive recording. I think that's really important for all of you, right? Yes, don't worry, Navodaya. Navodaya, right? Navodaya. She's asking a very good question. We will come to that. Okay. So I think recordings will be available definitely. But let's start with a fun activity just to see if you're paying attention to me. Okay. Now we are talking about CV writing. So do you know the correct spellings for CV? How do you spell CV correctly? So all you got to do is to just send me 1, 2, or 3 in the chat so that I know you're paying attention and your chat is working, right? You're there. So tell me what is the correct spellings for CV. Okay, very, very good. I'm looking at uh, all the chats and I think everyone's correct, right? Only maybe a few people got it wrong, but everybody, majority, did a fantastic job. And so, see, something like this, a very simple question like this can be critical, right? How do you spell? Now, when you write your CVs, when you write your cover letters, you have to be extra careful about the typos and the spelling mistakes that you do. So, this is a very good start to our session. I can see that many of you have paid attention to the correct spellings, right? So, CV stands for Curriculum Vitae, right? Curriculum vitae, you know that it has to be spelled, it's not an English word. So you have to be careful if you're spelling it out properly. So, why do we want to spell it out properly? Because when you are writing a cover letter, for example, I think it's more formal rather than saying my CV is attached to the email or my application. Sorry, my CV is attached to this email. It's better to say my curriculum vitae is attached to this email. So that kind of creates a more formal tone for your cover letter. Okay. So a fantastic job. Everyone, majority at least got the answer correct. Correct option is option 1. Okay, let's continue. Right. So why do you write resumes? Why do you write CVs, everyone? Why can't you just send an email? Okay, why do you have to do CVs or resumes? Why do we have a different document called CV and resumes? So there are 2 reasons, right? There are 2 major reasons why everyone around the world are still using CVs and resumes. Reason 1 is that if you can write it well, you can get the interested, you can create interest in the person who's reading your CV. So they can see that, in fact, you are a good communicator. So to show that you can communicate well, you need to create your CV so that the person who's reading your CV will be interested enough to meet you. So that's why they call you for an interview. So the second reason for writing and creating a interesting CV, attractive CV, is to get you to an interview, right? But here's the problem. In Sri Lanka, a lot of people have the misconception that they write a CV, they need to get a job. That never happens. Okay? So I want everyone to correct your thinking. Why do we write CVs and resumes, everyone? We write it to show that we can communicate well, and then, of course, to get to an interview, right? Not to get a job. So next time somebody asks you, don't tell that you're writing CVs to get jobs. You're writing CVs to get a call for an interview. So the opposite, what is the opposite? Opposite, or the other way to think about it, is that if you have been called for an interview, know that your CV has been successful, right? Because the job of a CV is to get you to an interview. Okay, I hope everyone is clear on these two purposes. Why do we write these business documents? Remember, CVs and resumes are business documents. They are not personal documents. So that's a critical piece of information. Are you putting anything unnecessary in your CV? So if you have a copy of your CV, I would like you to keep it next to you and go through the next few activities we are going to do. Okay. So first topic we are discussing now. Now, earlier, what did we discuss? We talked about what is a CV, right? The correct way to spell it and the purpose behind writing CVs and resumes. Next, we are going to talk about two very similar words. Often, these words are used in parallel. But think about this. Are CVs equal to resumes? Are they the same document? What do you say, everyone? Can you tell me what you think of this? Are CVs and resumes the same, or are they different? Yeah, very good. So a few people have, yeah, answered, and very good. They are definitely different. Yes. So that's good. Yeah, because many of you, I think, do know that, but there could be a few people who are not aware, right? So the difference is that if you're not aware of these differences, you might be losing out in the job hunt, right? So you definitely need to know what are the major differences between CVs and resumes, because otherwise you'll be losing out in the competition, right? So let's see what are they. So what's a CV? Uh, as you know, probably a CV stands for curriculum vitae. We had a discussion about the spellings, but it means, it comes from Latin, and it has a beautiful meaning, the course of your life. Curriculum vitae in Latin means the course of your life. See how beautiful that is? But okay, it says course of your life, but does that mean that you're going to put everything you have done so far? I went to this nursery, I went to this upper school, my uncle is so and so, my aunt is so and so? No, right? It means that on a professional level, you're going to talk about, you're going to present what you have done so far, uh, in terms of achievement and in terms of your qualifications, right? So what is a CV? A CV is a document that presents the course of your life on a professional level, right? In a way, it describes your career step by step. So it does include some personal information, right? So here's the tricky part, because there are certain personal information that you can use in a CV, but there is also a whole lot of personal information that you should not be using in a CV. Okay, so bottom line, do you know the difference? Have you included anything unnecessary in your CV. So this is the time for you to check on that, because during our session, I'm going to share a lot of misconceptions about CV writing in Sri Lanka. Okay. You can look at the CV as a comprehensive description of everything you have ever done, all achievements you're proud of, and all the publications that bear your name. So, even though I say that, please remember it's not about everything that you have done. It's basically the professional things, academic things that you have done that needs to be presented in your CV. So, if you're aiming for a academic position like a lecturership, you want to be a lecturer in accounting, management, or HR, or whatever subjects you are studying, then the CV also needs to include your research and publications. So that is something we don't see in business and corporate sector CVs that often. There are people who actually do a lot of research, but usually publications and research is a very, very important component for academic positions, right? Okay. So give me a second. I'm gonna cancel my slide for a minute. Okay, so let's move on to the next component, next part. Look at these two differences, everyone. Now, most of you understood that CVs and resumes are actually different, right? But did you know these differences existed between these two components, right? If you did not, I want you to study them carefully and see. Yeah. Okay. So now have a look at this. I hope all of you can see the slides. And I'm showing you the difference between Yeah, okay, right. So what are the major differences between CVs and resumes? Before I talk about the major differences, I want you to just have a look at this image. Okay, so anyway, we'll go through this first and then go to the image, okay? Right, so CVs on one hand, there is no rule of thumb as to how many pages you can have for a CV. But look what happens with a resume. Resumes, unlike a CV, are very, very short. So, for example, imagine that you see a job advert and then it is asking you to send a resume, right? But you don't know the difference between CVs and resumes. Just imagine what could go wrong, right? because the employer is expecting you to send them a very brief document. Usually, a resume is just one page. One page means if it is a soft copy, you might have 2 pages, both sides, right? So a CV is almost always just one page long. So if your job advert says that you need to send them a resume, please remember, do not send them a very, very long document. However, if your job advert or the employer is requesting for a CV, then please remember they're asking for a very detailed set of information about your professional life. So usually CV can be 2 to 8 pages long. It could be even further long depending on your seniority level, right? The second difference, usually a general document that gives the recruiters a 360 view. So CVs, because they are detailed, they can very easily create a 360 view about your entire personality. So that's why CVs are very valuable, because you can give a lot of information, details about your achievements, about your academics, about your experience in a CV. However, resumes are quite different, because if you are sending a resume, it has to be job specific, right? Vacancy specific. It has to be targeted. So you cannot include everything that you have done professionally in a resume. You need to cherry pick the most important ones and include those only in your resume, right? So I hope everyone can imagine what will happen. Imagine if I were the recruiter and I wanted to have a resume. Instead, you send me a 8-page CV. Immediately, I drop you from the shortlist, because I know that you're not very clear on following instructions. And of course, probably I won't have enough time to go through that as well, right? Okay, third difference is every new achievement, experience, and milestone should be included in a CV. Okay, so every time you grow in your career, every time you take on higher responsibilities, you take on new projects, you can include that in your CV. So what does that mean? A CV is something that grows with you as you grow in your career, right? The more senior you become, your CV will naturally grow with you. You keep on adding to it. But look what happens to the resumes. Only relevant achievements, experiences, milestones to the job requirement are included. So what does that mean? Yes, resumes are very, very cumbersome. Resumes are very difficult, but uh, because every time you apply for a position, you have to create a new resume. Okay, if you don't do that, I think you fail to make that positive impression. Okay, so I hope everyone is clear on this. In Sri Lanka, we normally misuse these two terms. Some people use the word CV, some people use the word resume. So I think even recruiters are somewhat confused about these two terms. So I hope everyone is clear on what is a CV and what is a resume, right? Okay, do any of you have any questions or any issues about what we just discussed? Is it clear to everyone? Okay, I want you to look at this image now. Okay, now I have put two images of CVs and resumes in comparison side by side. Okay, can you tell me one big difference that you see when you just look at this image itself? What's the biggest difference? I did mention that to you in a earlier. What's the biggest difference between, okay, yeah, it's not the photo, sorry about it. It's not the photo because even in a CV, if requested, you can create, you can add your photo. So photos are common to both CVs. Okay, very good. Matisha gave a good answer. Tell me more, give me more answers. What's the biggest difference you notice in terms of image? Sandhuni, very good. Sandhuni also got, Ashwin got the correct answer. What else? Yes, Navodaya also got the correct answer. What's the correct answer then? The biggest difference between CVs and resumes, the obvious one is that CVs are longer than resumes. So in the image, you see that the resume has just one page, CV has 2 pages or couple of pages. So always remember this key point, everyone, okay? Because I don't want you to be confused about the type of document you have to submit. Even if you're attending a job interview, figure out or find out whether they would like you to bring a resume or a CV. Okay? Yes, that's true. Isuru and a few others are talking about details, definitely. So more pages means more details. That's true. But always remember, on a visual level, CVs have more pages, means that it has more information, detail, all of that. So very good. I think everyone has more or less understood my key points, right? So sometimes some of you are visual learners. That's why I always like using images like this. So visually also you can learn that a resume is a very, very short document. Okay. CVs are fairly longer, and as I told you, a CV grows with you as you become or as you grow. A CV grows with you as you grow in your career. Okay, so let's move on. I think everyone has fairly a clear idea about what I just mentioned. Let's see. So there are 3 key differences between CVs and resumes, which I want all of you to remember. Okay, and then I'm going to talk to you also about uh, how this applies to different parts of the world, right? Because different parts of the world will have different measurements about what document is needed or not. So I'm going to give you a little tip about those requirements because some of you may be migrating soon, some of you may be applying for jobs abroad. So then this knowledge will become very, very important to all of you when you are going through the application process and visa and all of those things, right? Okay, so there are 3 key differences. I mentioned them to you, but I want you to remember them very clearly. So the first one is the length. Okay, obviously we talked about it several times. Resume is short, CVs are long, usually 2 to 8 pages or even more, depending on your experience level. If you're creating a resume, please remember both sides can be filled up, right? So usually one printed page, both sides. Second difference is the function. Function means why they are used, right? So CVs, especially in Sri Lanka, we prefer CVs because it gives more prominence to academic side. Your qualifications can be enhanced and then presented more prominently if you are sending a CV. So in Sri Lanka, usually we'll tilt toward CVs. Okay. In UK, United Kingdom also, they prefer CVs. But if you take a country like USA, they prefer resumes. So there are country differences as well that you need to notice. Okay. Um, and because CVs are naturally academically focused, you can include your uh, qualifications and all of those things, right? Resumes, on the other hand, the function is to highlight your corporate experience. So if you are structuring a resume, please remember more than your qualifications, what needs to take attention is your corporate experience. right? Job experience, right? So these are very, very critical differences. I want you to remember them when you are drafting your resumes or CVs. Then the third one is type of information that you include. So you can include achievements, certifications, online learning, everything in a CV, but not that much in a resume, because resumes are more about the projects that you have done, the um, the quantities that you have achieved, the results that you have created. So basically, we can say that CVs are more qualification focused, whereas resumes are more achievement focused documents, right? So see what a big difference these two documents have in terms of presenting yourself. You're presenting yourself, right? Your same personality. However, depending on what the employer wants from you, you are presenting a different profile of yourself. Okay, it's like you take a picture, a photograph in front of you, and then you also take a side picture of yourself. No? Very different, isn't it? It's not the same. It's the same person, but different snapshots. So I hope you can understand how these documents have developed. Okay, so this is important. The differences regionally. Uh, Generally, as I said before, resumes are highly in demand in USA, right? However, in Europe, uh, they use this interchangeably, meaning that some companies will say CV, some companies will say resume. So my suggestion is, if you are uh, applying for migration or higher studies or jobs uh, to foreign countries, talk to your agent first and then ask them whether they actually need a detailed CV or a short resume. Okay, best option is to do that. My advice, however, my experience is that I normally have both documents ready. So, say for example, when I was applying for higher studies, what I did was that I had two documents ready, um, and then I had a detailed CV plus I had a short resume created online. So at the end of the session, I'm going to share some tools with you, online tools that you can use. But one of the very famous tools you probably know is Canva. You can create a online resume on Canva, and then you can share that as a link. So you can do that as well. So it's a very smart thing. I think if you can create both documents now that you have enough time to spend on it, so that every time you have an opportunity, you can share the link immediately without getting your resume and CV printed, which are the old methods of doing things, right? Um, okay, Isru, hold on, hold your horses because I'm still not there. I will come to that eventually. Okay, be patient. We are going to cover one by one. We are not going to jump into ATS systems yet. There is a time for everything, right? So focus on what I'm saying now, right? ATS comes later. Okay, so we will talk about it definitely, right? So in Sri Lanka, what's happening? In Sri Lanka, usually people again have a confusion. Sometimes I've seen job adverts where they say CV, some job adverts say resume. I think sometimes even the recruiters might be a bit confused. So what I do in those situations is to write to them before I send my application in. What I do is I write to the HR and ask them, should I send a detailed CV or a short resume? So then at least they know that I'm kind of a different candidate, right? So that's another smart way to get in touch with the recruiters before you go for the interview. Some recruiters don't respond, so you can make a judgment about the company as well. If they are not responding to the applicants, then the company standards also can be evaluated, right? Uh, So are there any questions up to this point? So let's take a quick summary, everyone. What have we discussed? Take a moment and think about it. What did you learn anything new up to this point? Okay, good. So I want all of you to summarize because this is information that can go missing from your head because they're so then you're not doing this for an exam, right? So you can probably quickly forget about it. So today we talked about CVs and resumes. We started by talking about the origins of the word CV, curriculum vitae. We talked about the spellings, correct spellings. We talked about the meaning, the course of your life, and then we talked about the differences between CVs and resumes. And finally, we talked about the regional differences around the world, how these things are expected in case you are thinking of higher studies or foreign travel or something like that. Right? Yeah, so thank you very much. I think Sasangi has created a lot of deep level knowledge. That's why I said don't log out and wait for the recording to come. If possible, you remain online, okay? Because then when you interact with me, you will remember this for a lifetime. But if you just watch the recording, I don't think you will learn the tacit information I'm sharing. Okay? So this is a good opportunity for you to learn about good online behavior as well, good online learning as well, how to learn in an effective manner, right? When you are doing things online, because otherwise you can feel very tired and bored, and soon you will mentally go somewhere else, right? So, but if you're interacting, you will always then remember things at a deeper level. So that's very important for higher education. If you're already a student at CA or you're expecting to join CA very soon, I think the ability to learn things online is another very important area. Okay, let's move on. Activity one. We are going to do a fun thing now. We have talked about CVs and resumes. Both of them more or less have the same kind of components. So let's see how much you know rather than me teaching you. Okay. Here is a little activity. You can take a screenshot or a photo or whichever method that suits you. I want you to quickly label the different sections. All the sections are numbered from 1 to 9, sorry, 1 to 10. And then all you need to do is to match the numbers to the section titles A to J. So for this, I'm going to give you about, say, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Yeah, we'll try 2 minutes, but let's see how quickly you can work. If you finish, you can add some answers at least to the chat, but it's it's okay, you don't have to always put everything into the chat. If you can, put it into the chat. If not, it's okay, right? So I need you to be active. I don't want you to go somewhere else and do something else. I want you to stick to this session and do the activities with me, because then you will create a long term memory, long deep level learning. Okay, right, I'm going to keep 3 minutes in my timer. 3 minutes starts now. Uh, you can start labeling the different sections. And if you're done, you can share some answers. 1 minute more. Okay, so your time is up. Fantastic job by all of you. I think there are some people who are super fast. There are a lot of people who sent all the answers, which is fantastic, right? So a good job. I'm very happy to see that everyone's actively participating. This is what we need to see because otherwise you will fall asleep. I will also fall asleep and there won't be any session continued, right? So you have to learn how to be active and enjoy the session. Then it's a lot of fun for all of us. Okay, so here are the correct answers. Can you please double check whether your answers are correct? I think almost everyone sort of gave correct answers, right? So there are 10 sessions more or less, but depending on your uh, life, right? You can select. But out of these, very, very important sections are the personal statement. Okay. Every modern CV nowadays have something called personal statements. So you need to know how to include a personal statement correctly. Even in a resume, my suggestion is include a very brief but effective, impactful personal statement. Okay. Earlier, in the older versions, we used to have objective, career objectives, but now we don't include career objectives. Instead, what we include are the personal statements. Okay, so there are slight differences between writing these different elements. The next one is work experience. Then education is last because this is a resume. So you can see how the important priorities are listed here, right? So in a resume, work experience is number 4. What does that mean? It means that work experience takes higher priority compared to educational qualifications you have. Okay. And then you might also see volunteer experience. This is highly in regard or highly demanded in modern CVs and resumes both. If you have done any project work, CSR work, any work that is for charity purposes, a lot of foreign companies actually give marks or points for those things, right? Okay, now let's move on to the writing part of it. There are 3 major stages or levels of writing an effective CV or resume. So, what are they? So we have a primer stage, then we have a main body stage, and then lastly we have the finishing stage. So I want all of you to remember these 3 stages. Yeah, don't worry. Okay, that's a fantastic question by Mirukshan. Mirukshan is asking an extremely important question. What if a fresher with no experience is there? I'm going to give you a lot of tips what to do, right? So stick around till the end because I'm going to share what you can do to enhance your CV or resume if you have no work experience. Then what are you going to do? So there are strategic communication methods that you can use in case you have no previous experience. So I'll be giving you some simple tips about it later on. Okay, so what are we discussing? We are talking about the writing process, right? Before you go for your interviews, before you go for CA career fair, you need to go through these 3 stages very, very carefully. So stage 1 is very important. It's called the primer stage, right? What do? You prime yourself, right? You need to choose a correct resume format because there are different types of resume formats, right? Online also you can go and see there's a variety of resume formats. For example, chronological formats, hybrid formats. So there are a variety. So you need to pick and choose what you like, what is most relevant to you. Secondly, you need to add the relevant contact information, personal details. But also remember there are things like personal information that is not needed, but Sri Lankans typically do. Okay, here is a question to all of you. Can you name one such personal information? Internationally, it's not needed, but in Sri Lanka, we typically add it. Give me one example. What kind of unnecessary personal information do Sri Lankans add? Can you give me an example? Anyone? Or you can use your mic and tell me. Ah, yes. Okay, Navatya got one answer correct. Nationality might be important in some cases. No, if you're especially applying to foreign staff, I don't see why it's directly relevant. But yeah, there are situations where. Yes, okay. Sevmini got the correct answer. Very good. Kaushalya got, Karuna got, very good. See, you already know this, right? So what are the unnecessary things? Your age is not required. But why do I see so many people adding their birthday, right? And their age and marital status, right? Why do you put that? Not necessary. Why do the recruiters need to know whether you're married or not? You're not, they're not hiring the husband or the wife, right? Don't put it unless specifically asked to, which is of course in other countries is sometimes considered illegal. Employers cannot ask for marital status from an applicant in other countries. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, we voluntarily give those information, even though the recruiter does not ask. So just remember this, right? I'm not saying don't put, but if it is not serving any purpose, don't put them, right? Your date of birth, your marital status, even the address, as someone said, address, the specific address. But I think location is important, right? Say, for example, Colombo 7, that's okay. You just add the area, don't add the house number, because these things can lead to identity theft, right? Some people even include the NIC numbers in their CVs. I don't know why they do that, right? So, yes, Rahim also says, house number, why do you put the house number? Are they going to visit to your house and do the interview there, right? Don't put these unnecessary things. And here's another interesting thing that I personally kind of had experience. Sometimes putting your photograph can be not a good idea. Okay, so unless your employer specifically asks for the photograph, you have the discretion not to use it. If you want to use it, that's okay, right? It's up to you. But no one can force you to send the photograph, okay? Because they are not married, they are not kind of getting married to you, no? They are just hiring you for a job. So I don't see why you need to show your face to the employer unless you are applying for a modeling job, okay? So don't do that. But there could be some situations where they want it. So I don't know, use your discretion. I think usually it's not a very good idea to put your photograph, um, especially if it is something where you have all the qualifications. I don't see why you have to send it, and sometimes it can be detrimental also, right? Because people can be they can have biases. So, say for example, being a Sri Lankan, I put my photograph, and the recruiter is a white fellow. Sometimes they don't like it because either they think we are Indian or Pakistanis, right? So they may have biases against us because they assume that we are from such a country, because they don't know what Sri Lanka is. Mostly what they do is they uh, kind of think that Sri Lanka is just like India or Pakistan, right? So there have been personal experiences that's why I'm sharing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but sometimes biases are there. So I think you think carefully, okay? Yeah, that's right. Mirukshan is giving a very valid point. There's a lot of places I think you can't work together with a partner. Uh, no, I don't think so, because unless you're applying to your partner's place, right? If your husband is working or wife is working someplace, you're not going to anyway apply to that place, no. But if you're doing that, then you have to say marital status, married, and to such and such a person. But in general, I think you don't need to, as I always said, use your discretion. I'm not saying don't put, I'm saying think about it. Okay? Do you think that specific organization will have some connection, will have a requirement? Then yes, put it. But in Sri Lanka, what I have noted is that many people just put these personal information without any discretion. So that could lead to a lot of problems. Okay. And there have been situations where sometimes your personal information has been leaked to other people, and they call you, they approach you, they bombard you with certain unnecessary messages or promotional material, because they take it from the recruiters somehow. There have been instances, right? So, bottom line is be careful about yourself, your personality, your security, your family's security. In Sri Lanka, I think people are very, very insensitive when it comes to um, personal information, right? So, all I'm saying is, everyone, I'm not saying don't put, I'm saying think carefully. If you think it needs to be there, you put it. It does not matter. Okay. So, primer stage is very, very important, because see the amount of the discussion we are having. Okay. So, during the primer stage, you need to think about where you are applying to, why you are applying to, what are your future ambitions, are you going to stay with that company for a long time, or are you applying them for a short period, are you applying for a training period? All of those have to be taken into account during the primer stage, right? Then you move on to your main body section. um, Yes, I think that's a very smart question. Sachini says, if the job advert includes an age limit, is it better to? Yes, then it's yes, definitely, because they are looking for certain age category. So yes, that can be a very important piece of information. So that's what I'm saying. If there is a requirement, you put it, but don't blindly put information for every application you send. Okay, only if it is needed. Always think about your personal security, because nowadays we know that there are a lot of identity theft happening online. Okay. uh, Even a piece of information such as your NIC number can lead to a lot of problems. So you have to watch out, because we are living in a digitalized environment. So not like those days. Now there can be various scams and various activities online. We have to think about those, especially because you all are, some of you are starting out in the industry. Then if you don't know these things, you can be used by other people, and your identity, your information can be used by other people. So I think it's good to be careful. Okay. So main body. Now you come to the most important parts, right? After you carefully decide what to include, main body, you need to talk about or present your work experience, showcase your skills, your abilities, and education and qualifications and different resume sections. Okay. Once you get through these two stages, now we come to the most modern part. Okay. The most, uh, the latest changes that have happened in terms of finishing your CV and the product, right? So this is the time, finally, when you finish everything, it's a good idea not only when you're finishing, but during your primer, main body, also you have to think about ATS friendly formatting. But the most activity should be done during the finishing stage to check whether ATS formatting, words, everything is being used, right? Um, Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm going to give a couple of hints to you, Isuru, because Isuru's question is very important. I think somebody else also asked about ATS friendly keywords. Okay, so I'm going to give you some tips how to decide what keywords to focus on, where to get those from. So that's a very important question. Yeah, that's a good point. Rahim is also talking about pressures and they just put unnecessary things to fill the CV. But here's the problem. If you put unnecessary things and you're just trying to bluff your way, please remember HR and recruiters are very highly trained to spot those. So rather than adding value to your CV, it can actually get you ruled out from the shortlist. So my advice is don't put unnecessary things, always put valuable things because there's always ways for you to enhance what you already have. That's the problem. People don't know how to enhance what they already have. Say, for example, how many of you have done school projects? But no one really writes about those in your CVs. No, you only say A levels, O levels, and then any courses that you have done. This is the problem. So if you have done any school projects, if you have done, say, for example, organized events, you raise funds, because in school I was doing all of that. So that's enough for you to fill an entire resume in an effective manner. So I want you to sit down and I want all of you to go through your entire school career. What have you done during school? Have you danced in your dance team? Have you done sports? Have you done projects? Have you, I don't know, been a captain? Have you been a house captain? Have you been a prefect? All of that is enough for you to fill an entire resume. It's all about the art of writing. Okay. So if I put the three stages into, if I combine them, you get 11 steps. So if you want, you can take a screenshot, but I'm sure they will share the recording as well. But take a screenshot if you like this, because this will help you to write the CV or resume in a very, very effective manner. You can use these 11 steps as a checklist. Okay, at the end, you can check, did I choose a resume format? Did I add my correct personal information? Did I write a resume headline? Did I add a personal statement? Right? Did I use ATS friendly keywords and skills? Did I correctly detail my work experience? So, etc. etc. So, you can ask, convert these 11 steps to questions and check one by one. Okay. What do you mean by AM position, Sevmini? AM position. What's an AM position? Okay, let's move on. I'm going to share this. You don't need to do this now, but okay, let me share. Uh, you can do this after the session so that you know what you learned. Okay. Yes. So this is a quiz, online quiz I created. I'm going to put this link in the chat. When you finish the session, just answer the questions so that you have a summary and you will remember what you studied. It's a very easy one, but it will help you to remember. So can all of you check your chat and then see if the link is working? Just save the link. Okay. Right. So let's quickly move on to the most important part. This is the part you have been asking me so many questions on. So what are the latest trends and modern methods of writing CVs, right? So there are so many changes that are happening now in the recruitment field. Um, we are going to just talk about some of those methods and the changes you need to incorporate. So 70% of job applications get disqualified by applicant tracking systems without being read. Okay. Now, ATS or applicant tracking systems are systems that use certain algorithms to figure out whether you're a suitable candidate for a particular job vacancy. This statistic emphasizes how important it is to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, right? So if you are applying for very, very competitive companies, very highly regarded environments or companies abroad, and if you're applying for foreign companies, this is absolutely necessary. And not only for that, even for migration purposes, when you apply to companies abroad in Australia or in Canada, I think there are many companies who use ATS systems to check whether you're a suitable candidate, right? So I want you to pay attention to what is applicant tracking systems. So let's watch a little video. I want you to answer two simple questions, right? What's an ATS? We already know the answer, but just check. And why should you make your CV resume ATS friendly? So let's move to the video. Okay, I hope all of you can see the screen now. I will play it a little bit and then, yeah, then you can tell me if you can hear it or not. Then I'll play that once more. Okay, so here goes.
Important to understand all the technology being used by job boards and hiring.
Can you hear that, everyone? Okay, Diniti, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. So let's move on, and then I'm gonna play that from the beginning. Listen to it.
To understand the hiring process, it's important to understand all the technology being used by job boards and hiring companies. Most people incorrectly assume that people are still reading resumes. While just a few years ago, about 70% of hiring companies were using applicant tracking systems to manage applicants, now almost all companies and job boards like Monster, CareerBuilder, Indeed, and others are using resume filtering technology and applicant tracking systems. The proliferation of this technology has been driven by the volume of applicants to each job and the need to search for applicants based on specific criteria for each job. It's probably worth noting at this point, even if you network your way into a company, your resume will be put into an applicant tracking system. This is because companies are governed by equal employment opportunity laws to prevent discrimination and other unfair hiring practices. In most companies, hiring managers are no longer allowed to accept emailed or physical resumes without it first being submitted to the applicant tracking software. So, referrals, social media, and LinkedIn all are subject to the applicant tracking system as well. Let's look at an applicant tracking system to understand how your application makes its way to the hiring manager. First, you see a job posting on a job board or corporate career website. You submit your application. The first thing to happen is your resume is parsed into its components so the applicant tracking system can show all applicants in the same format. Here's a resume in an applicant tracking system. As you can see, this is not in Microsoft Word or PDF. Instead, it is in the applicant tracking system. For your resume to get into the applicant tracking system, it needs to be formatted in a particular way. Unfortunately, over 70% of resumes contain some formatting error when being put into an applicant tracking system. This is why PrepTel shows you how to format your resume so that you know it will be seen properly. Next, applicant tracking systems are designed to streamline the hiring process. Applicant tracking systems use technology to rate and rank candidates to each job. To do this, a recruiter just needs to click this button to identify the top applicants for this job. In the past, the recruiter would have to view each resume and assess each one to determine if it was a good match. Now, technology does this step, reducing the time and effort so recruiters can do other tasks. What job seekers need to understand is that your resume needs to be at the top of the ranking, otherwise you will not be considered for an interview. Let me give an example. I have here a top candidate from Harvard Medical School who worked at Harvard Medical for the past 5 years. This person is going to apply for a similar job at a major pharmaceutical company. This person has a top degree and has more work experience in this specific field than required by the job posting. You might think this person surely would be reviewed for an interview. However, when we submitted this person's resume, they ranked low on the list with only a 48% relevance rating. No one was ever going to see their resume. The reason for their poor ranking is that they didn't realize how their resume was being ranked. This is where PrepTel helps candidates. For each job, a set of unique keywords are required to get a top ranking. PrepTel identifies these keywords so every resume submitted is ranked at the top of the candidate list. Let's go back to our Harvard graduate candidate. In reviewing our candidate's resume, we see 20 keywords are missing and he has a weak rating. After adding these 20 phrases to the person's resume, PrepTel now rates this candidate as very strong. Now let's go back and submit this candidate to the job. Only this time we will change their name from Greg Common to Greg Optimized so that we can see the difference. Presto! We are now at the top of the candidate list with 100% match to the job. Now the recruiter will send my resume to the hiring manager for review. This concludes this video. Thank you for using PrepTel.
Okay, so I hope everyone got a very good idea about what is an ATS system and how does it help you if you can customize your resume, customize your resume to the job vacancy. That's very, very important. So the two questions that I asked you, right? What's an ATS system? ATS system is a software or a program that helps recruiters to identify the most matched candidate. Now you saw that example was very interesting, isn't it? It was a person with a PhD who had gone to Harvard and still he was not getting into the recruited shortlist, right? But after adjusting his resume with the correct keywords, you saw what happened to his CV. He became number 100% matched to the job vacancy. So obviously, what is the recruiting manager going to do? He will definitely immediately pass your CV on to the relevant authorities, right? But what if you never know about these things? What if you did not know about ATS? You would just write something and then you would just send it thinking that your qualifications alone will get you a job, no? So that's the mistake a lot of people make when they're applying for recruitment. So this is really important. I hope everyone understood that. And so why should you make your CV resume ATS friendly? Obviously, qualifications alone, experience alone will not guarantee you a position in the short list. unless you make your CV ATS friendly. So that's a very important message for everyone to think about. Your English language matters a lot, right? So even if you get past this obstacle, the recruiter will only give your resume a glimpse, right? Usually research suggests that most of the recruiters spend about 6 seconds, right? When they see your resume, they just spend 6 seconds evaluating it. So can you make a good impression within 6 seconds? Very difficult. But if you use the correct resume keywords, you can definitely get noticed by the ATS system. Then the recruiter will know that you are a very good match, right? So here are the tips. You have been asking for this. So I want you to, number one, imagine you saw an application or a job advert, right? Job vacancy. Where do you normally see them? How do we apply? Usually on a website nowadays, or earlier it used to be on newspapers, right? Now we don't have newspapers. Usually we have a job advert websites. So imagine you saw this job vacancy for an entry level accounts executive. Imagine, right? Just example. So you could be at a higher level than this. So what is the first thing you need to do? Can you tell? Someone can tell me. What's the first thing you need to do if you want to get ahead in the recruitment competition? How do you win the competition? What do you do with the first thing? What is the first thing you do with the job advert? Any ideas? Or have you all fallen asleep now? Are you still there, everyone? I'm not getting the chat now. Why is that? Is it stuck? Ah, yeah, now I'm getting the messages. Okay. Yes, so someone said, Navodya said making a good CV. Yes, okay. Leo said referring the advertisement. Oh, that's a good answer. But what do you mean by referring? What do we need to do actually with the job advert? Highlight hard skills. Okay, so says that. What else? I still didn't get the correct answer. What's the first thing? Okay, Pumi says job responsibilities. Very good. You came close. Matching with their, yes, that's right. Sahani is giving a good answer. Okay, so here's what you need to do, everyone. Every time you want to apply for a job advert or job vacancy, I want you to take a copy of that CV, right? If you are serious about recruiting or getting the job, or at least getting the interview, you have to do this. You need to take a copy of the CV, right? If possible, get a printed copy, right? And then you sit down and what do? You read the CV. There are two things called job description and job responsibilities. There are two sections almost always in every job advert. So I want you to read these two sections carefully. And what do? You need to ensure you underline the keywords there. Okay? So keywords then have to be converted into action verbs like the ones I have listed here. So say for example, let's say the job advert says they want someone with experience who has implemented ERP systems, right? With ERP systems. So imagine you have that experience. So you need to now convert that back and say, rather than nominalization, don't say, I implemented the new ERP system, right? Instead, you start with a verb, action verb. You say implemented a new ERP system successfully and reduced work hours, 3 work hours per weak due to the automation, right? Mohakari, that kind of, like the quantified outcome. So that's why I said modern CVs are always results oriented. Earlier, we would just say nominalize, right? We would just nominalize, use nouns like I implemented the new ERP system and completed project successfully. So rather than saying something in a very uh, nominalized manner, you need to convert that job advert, whatever the job advert. Say, for example, your job advert says you have to have experience with accounting software. Don't just say I have used uh, these accounting software. You need to create an action verb. Have successfully used or applied accounting software and achieved 40% of whatever. So quantifying numbers, achievements, results have to be incorporated. Okay, so that's an important point because modern CVs and resumes have to be very, very results oriented, not nominalized information. So rather than information oriented, make your CV results oriented. What if you don't have any of these, as you said, like you're a school leaver? So you can still do that, right? Say, for example, in school, you did your annual let's say something like my experience, we organized our school annual English day, right? So then to organize that, how many things I had to do, right? We had to go fundraise, we had to invite other schools, we have to collaborate with the teachers, we had to curate the items we are presenting. So many things you can mention. So you can say uh, organized annual school English day by raising 200,000 rupees from sponsors or gathering sponsorships, right? So everyone can think. It's all about the way you present what you have done. If you have been a school prefect, what can you do? If you were a school prefect or a house captain, you can still do this, right? Have managed a group of um, middle school students and trained them on something, whatever you have done. Have managed a group of middle school students, grade 9 and 10, where I have trained them on sports skills or competitive sports, something like that. Okay, so it's a matter of you sitting down, looking at the job advert, underlining the keywords, and taking the keywords, because normally in the job advert, keywords come as nouns. Take the nouns, convert the nouns into verbs. See why English is so important here, right? You need to get the support of somebody else. If you think your English is not so good, get someone whose English is better. Sit down with the job advert, underline all the keywords there, take the keywords, sometimes the keywords can be verbs also, convert that into verbs. If the nouns are given, you convert that into verbs. Okay, so you can use examples like mentored, mobilized, motivated, right? Navigated, operated, assigned, delegated. These are very, very important ATS friendly words. Okay, but ATS depends on what the job advert tells you. So look very, very carefully at the job advert. As I suggested, many of us don't have that habit. Many Sri Lankans, they just look at the advert, they only copy the email address provided or the telephone number, then they just send a CV, right? Obviously, you're not going to get a very positive reaction, right? So don't just copy the email address or the phone number from the job advert. job adverts are created to identify the smart applicants. So if you can identify the keywords, then you can definitely make a positive impression. Okay, let's move on. So look at this. I'm just giving you another example so that you clearly understand, right? Instead of writing managed a team of 12 people, you can say managed a team of 12 people consistently meeting or exceeding quarterly targets. I would say this can be even further enhanced if you can add a number or a statistic here. So, for example, you can say managed a team of 12 people consistently meeting or exceeding quarterly targets for the past three um, business cycles, right? Something like that. Or saving 30% of costs, all right? Cost saving or reducing employee turnover, 12% employee turnover. So something like that, but don't lie, okay? You cannot create bogus information because please remember the job of a CV, what's the main purpose? To get you to an interview. So if you lie and you create wrong statistics and data, remember in the interview you may be question based on this, right? So if you're putting some kind of a data, number, statistic, you might need evidence to prove them. So how do you get evidence? Let's say, for example, school report card. So sometimes in your report, student record books, at the back cover, teachers used to write, she organized the annual English day during this period, or sometimes character certificates from school. Sometimes the teachers mention, right? Or any recommendation letters. Get a recommendation letter, right? From someone. Just ensure you mention these not exact numbers, but some kind of proof. If you said I managed a team of 12 people, at least you need to have some kind of a document, or oral is also okay, but writing is better, isn't it? So get a character certificate or school record books, just take them. They may not even ask, but in case they ask you, you have to be ready. Okay, so I'm not saying to take all the school record books you ever had. Just use your thinking. Okay, it does not mean that you have to take so many documents to prove everything that you put, but in case there is a question, be ready to answer that in the job interview, right? So whatever statistic, data, information you put, ask yourself, can I prove this? Or am I lying? Do not lie, because you will be caught in the interview, right? In case they question you, right? So the next point is use active voice and not passive voice. So for example, again, English language is important. Don't say the money was counted by the cashier, or the project was uh, headed by myself and 5 others. Okay? Don't say that. You need to use the active voice. The cashier counted the money, right? I managed, or I headed a project where we did this and saved this much of money, right? Or generated this much of revenue, or reduce spending, or reduce wastage. Somehow you need to ensure that you are highlighted rather than highlighting the project or the object of what you have done, right? So don't say the project was headed by these people. Say I headed, or we headed, or our boss headed. So that is the active voice, right? So it's always very important that you use active tense, active voice, so that the stress and the emphasis is on what you have achieved, right? This is especially important for resume writing. Okay, so final point about the writing part. Now we talked about 3 sections, right? Primer, main body, and finishing. So the last stage of your resume writing is the finishing stage, which is very, very important because a lot of people don't really focus on the finishing stage, right? When you submit your resume, you will most likely also have to submit a cover letter. But this is the problem. Like sometimes you may have to apply through company website. There you will have an application form. So if there is an application form to fill, then you don't need to submit a cover letter. But for all the other situations where you have to submit a CV or a resume, submitting a cover letter with that is the polite thing to do, professional thing to do, right? So in the job advert, they may not actually tell you to submit one, but still, please remember it's polite and professional to submit a cover letter, if even if they have not mentioned that in the advert. Okay, so usually that's what we do. Usually, if you are applying on a normal basis by looking at a job advert, even if they have not mentioned, you still have to submit a short cover letter, right? Think of a cover letter as a quick preview of your skills and experiences. So make it a point to write a very polite, brief cover letter where you pick and choose the most important skills and abilities that you have that 100% matches and 100% takes priority in the job advert. So this is why writing your CV based on ATS and keywords are so important, because by this time you already know what are the most highly in demand skills and qualifications you need. So if you have any of those, I think the cover letter is the best place for you to show why you deserve this job. Okay, so it's a very good chance for you to stand out from the crowd. If there are 50 people applying, you can use your cover letter as an opportunity to highlight why you deserve this job more than the other people. So show that. Okay, show the recruiters that you have understood and you have mastered the application process. So write it briefly, but identify, I would say 3. Okay, don't write more than 3. Look at the job advert, identify the most critical qualifications or skills or abilities, 3 most important ones, put it in the cover letter. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question by Sachini. I normally, what I do is I always write the cover letter as the main body of the email. Okay, so if we are emailing our application, I think it's good always to write the write the cover letter as your email, and then you need to attach your CV. But please ensure you mention that whatever you attach, right, you need to mention that you have attached it. So you can say, please refer to the attached CV, or I have attached my CV for your kind perusal. Rather than CV, I would say better to say curriculum vitae if you want, or resume if you want, right? Please find attached the curriculum vitae for your kind perusal. Some such sentence have to be included so that the recruiter knows that you have attached it. So here's another point, right? This is another trick that I use personally when I apply, is I sometimes along with the CV, remember I told you that I have a short resume online one created. So sometimes what I do is I just copy the link and put it after the email. Like once I finish the email, I put PS, postscript, and then I attach the link. I don't attach the resume because it's not a requirement, no, right? So what I do is I attach the full CV because they have asked for the CV. And then as an additional document, I normally send my online resume link. So sometimes I think that's a smart thing to do because then everybody just sends CVs. I'm the only one sending a link. What do you do when you see a link, everyone? What is the human nature, right? What do you do normally when you see links? Human nature is they click it, right? Whoever gets a link, we click it. So that's a smart way. I think sometimes it works because you can get attention from the people, right? Because if there are 50 applications and I'm one of the people who send the link and there are not too many people, then they will remember me. So that's a little trick you can also try out. Sometimes it really works, right? The best cover letters are usually short, so the message is clear and easy to understand, right? So please remember, don't write everything about yourself uh, in your cover letter, because if the cover letter is unnecessarily long and lengthy, recruiters may not want to read it. Okay, so don't chase them away from the cover letter. Instead, you have to attract people, right? So make it short, make it brief, but create impact. How do you create impact? You ensure you highlight at least 3 critical requirements from the job advert, right? So best for the last, this is the most important part. If all of you are here, this is going to help you enormously, right? So here are 2 tools that I personally used in the past. The first one is jobscan.com, .co. This will scan your resume against a job, yes, against the job posting and tell you how many of the needed keywords are in your resume. So what you can do is when you finish writing your resume or your CV, go to JobScan and submit your CV. Then they will scan your CV and it will tell you, um, I think you have to also add a copy of your job advert. Okay. So always save the job advert. If you're serious about applying to jobs, always save the job adverts for yourself. Okay. So submit a copy, if I remember it correctly. So you have to submit a copy of your job advert and then you have to submit a copy of your CV. Then what it will do is that it will match one another and then tell you if the keywords are there, if you have captured all the important keywords. The second one is also equally interesting. That's enhancecv.com. It will scan the resume and give you a score out of 100. Is it 40%, 60%? How ATS friendly is your CV? So that's a fantastic way to try and increase your score. Uh, and here's another thing I forgot to mention. If you're creating CVs for a ATS focused company, then don't include pictures, graphics, or images in your CV. It has to be clean text only. Okay, because if you include any images, let's say icons and things like that, um, usually ATS systems cannot recognize those. So if that company is using ATS, or if you suspect them to use ATS systems, to just submit very plain looking documents as your CV. But if you're applying to a Sri Lankan company and you think they are not using ATS, then yes, go ahead, put some pictures, images, icons, make your CV stand out, make it look beautiful, attractive. But don't do that for ATS focused organizations, right? Um, I think it's best if you want to create your CV from scratch. I think Canva.com is easier because they have templates. So you can try Canva. It's free also. It's enough to get the free account, and you can do a lot of things on Canva, right? Canva is a very very popular website now. Normally, I use Canva to do my CVs. So yeah, Canva is enough. I think like there probably are so many other websites, but I think Canva will do. It's more than enough. Right. So here are the most important parts we are jumping into now. The last few minutes. So the what are the latest trends in recruitment now? Number one, ATS optimization. So always remember, good companies have started to use ATS even in Sri Lanka. So if possible, figure out or find out if they're using ATS to screen your CVs, right? If you don't know that, then it's best to make sure your CVs are simple, attractive, and captures the most important information. Don't overcrowd with a lot of information, even if you're writing a CV. Okay. Even for CVs, I say don't put too much, as you said earlier, unnecessary information. Okay. Second change, second difference now is online portfolios and personal links. So this is what I mentioned. You can add your online resume link to your cover letter, or you can even add your LinkedIn profile link to the cover letter, right? But ensure that your LinkedIn matches what you mentioned in the CV, because sometimes if you know different things, now in my case I work in different fields, right? Curriculum development, lecturing, consultation, corporate sector, corporate training. So then I can't use the LinkedIn profile because my LinkedIn kind of has a one-sided outlook. So if I send it to corporate sector, then they will be disappointed. So you have to be very careful there. If you are sharing your LinkedIn profile, just make sure it matches the information you put in your personal resume or CV. Okay, AI generated content. So now the latest development is that they are creating CVs through AI, but I think sometimes it's easier for us to spot these AI generated CVs. So my advice is don't do that. Okay, because especially if ATS is there, I think ATS knows how to recognize AI generated keywords. So I think sometimes it might have a negative impact on your application. So just to be sure, I think it's always a nice thing if you can create your own CV, because it helps you to understand who you are, right? That's a very positive thing. I mean, when I created my CVs and I update my CV, I understand what are my positives and negatives, what are my strengths and weaknesses. So the more I write and polish my CV, I understand what I need to improve. But if you just get an AI to do it for you, I think you miss that opportunity. So I think sit down, go through the three stages we talked about, do the things by yourself, because it also helps you for your job interview. Okay, if you write your CV by yourself, I think it gives you a deeper knowledge about yourself. Then in the interview, whatever questions the recruiters ask you, you know how to answer because you wrote about it in your CV. But if you give it to the AI, you have no idea what AI has mentioned about you. Sometimes AI has a tendency to make mistakes also and say false information about you. Okay. So, yes, AI generated content is a very common thing now. So, I think just stay away from that. It's easy, but it will destroy your personal it will just remove all the personality from your CV. And the last improvement, last trend is psychometric assessments. Now, employers are now more and more giving personality tests and psychometric metric tests to assess candidates rather than just relying on CVs now. So they don't, because of AI generated information, right? Because they can't be sure whether this person is the right person portrayed in the CV, because CV could have been done by the AI. So just to make sure, now I think most uh, recognized companies, they give you personality tests to do or psychometric tests just to check whether you have written correctly about yourself in your CV. Okay, so remember these trends. There's a lot of ATS optimization, and portfolios and links, AI generated content, and psychometric assessments happening. Okay, so final points. Uh, just go through this carefully because these are the most critical pieces of information. If you are just starting out as a fresher, as I promised you at the beginning of the session, this is the most important part, right? So tips to succeed quickly in the job market. If you are a fresher, if you are a newcomer, if you are a school leaver, how do you succeed? Number one, please create the correct mindset. Be ready for rejections, delays, and competition. That's the natural part. Don't blame yourself. Okay, don't feel disappointed. Develop your courage and persistence, right? Continue to do the job search. Don't expect with the first interview I'm going to get my job. Don't expect with the first CV you're going to get your first job. No, it does not happen. Okay, there'll be many rejections, there'll be many delays, right? There'll be other people cutting you off, or maybe you will not get a chance because there's a better person, better competition, right? So don't worry, be persistent. The first job is the hardest to get usually. So remember that. But remember this also, even 1 year experience adds and increases your chances drastically. So it's all about your first year or 6 months getting training and experience, right? Here is a secret, hidden job market. One of the problems I see with my students is that they always rely on job websites only. But I started thinking about my own journey. How did I get recommendations? So what I've realized is that usually I've always found all the good jobs because of my network, right? I have connections, I have friends, I have lecturers who recommend me, right? So LinkedIn connections, employee referrals, family members, friends, create a network around you and tell them that you're looking for a job, because that's one of the best ways to get a good job. Okay, so don't always rely on job websites, because uh, sometimes everybody applies to those places, right? So this is called the hidden job market. Who can help you? Talk to your inner circle, talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, your parents' friends, right? Or your school teachers, your lecturers. These are good people for you to identify a place to work. So create experience. Now, this is important. Some of you ask me, Miss, we don't have any experience. What to do? Here are some tips for you to follow, right? How to build experience early in your career. If you have no job experience, I want you to volunteer, right? Find a business that your friends have or your family members have, or maybe even a small shop, right? Maybe someone has a very small shop. Volunteer and help them with bookkeeping, and then ask them if you could add that as part of your experience in the CV. Okay, so do your parents have a shop? Do your friends, family members, can you work there for a month and do some bookkeeping, right? So find out, check, right? Look around. So that is valuable experience. So help family businesses with records. Do internships during vacations. You don't have to wait till CES Sri Lanka finds you internships. You can find your own internships, right? Maybe for no pay, right? So just for the experience, at least for 1 month, 2 months, you can do some internships and get their recommendation. And also during busy schedules, I think a lot of auditors are looking for youngsters like you. They want people to help them out because they're so busy with their auditing work. So find someone, accountant or auditor, they might definitely need your support. So talk to someone in your network, ask them whether you could help out. Don't expect money for everything, right? Just for the experience. So even 1 to 2 months of experience will help your CV stand out enormously because we are living in a very competitive AI driven world. So if you have real world hands on experience, people are definitely going to uh, invite you at least for an interview, right? So then, of course, interviews are a whole different kettle. You have to practice your interview skills, but that's a different story. So today I have taught you, I hope, about something new regarding CV writing and resume writing. Okay, so what's the summary? Remember, in order to successfully write your CV and resumes, you have to go through 3 stages: primer, main body, and finishing, right? So during these 3 stages, what you do can critically help you to stand out from the crowd. And I have also today discussed with you some latest trends, some tips if you are a fresher, right? How you can recognize the opportunities around you. Because sometimes people might have a tunnel vision. They think jobs are always advertised in a website or a newspaper. But there are so many opportunities that you may be missing from your immediate surroundings. So be aware, look around, talk to people, be communicative. Main point is to talk to people around you. If you communicate, then you will get a lot of opportunities. But always be ready with your latest updated version of CV and resumes, right? So this is the summary. I hope everybody got a little idea. I hope I was able to give you something new, and and then you found this session to be useful and interesting. So I'm going to share a feedback form link. So please don't leave. Please ensure, because your feedback is going to help me a lot. And I think CA will also use that feedback for the next few sessions. So this is valuable information for all of us. So I invite all of you to stick around and join the feedback session, log into the feedback session. And if you got something out of this session, please leave your comments and thoughts, and then we will definitely do better in the next round as well. So give me a second, everyone. I'm going to get you the link. And if you have any questions, floor is open until I get you the link. I'm okay to answer any questions, but give me a second. Okay, so everyone, can you please check your chat? Uh, we have sent you the link for the feedback forms. And as I said, it will be very helpful for all of us. If you got something out of this session to know about it, if you have any suggestions or improvements to be added, that will also help us a lot. So, are there any questions, anything that you want to get clarifications on? Are you happy? Are you uh, awake? Are you listening? Right? Uh, are you sleeping? What has happened to you? Let me know in the chat also whether you enjoyed the session and did you get anything positive. So I'm going to remain here for another few minutes. You have the opportunity to share your thinking and ask for any questions or clarifications. Walk-in CV, Nadishani, now in Sri Lanka, I think that's very rare, but you can give it a try. There are some companies that are always looking for new um, recruitments, but even if they're not really looking for new recruitments, walk-in CVs mean that if you have a particular company in your mind, let's say CS Sri Lanka, you just go to the HR department, talk to somebody, and say that you're interested, right? So you can just have a polite conversation and say, I'm very interested in joining CES Sri Lanka, and would there be any vacancies available? If you do have, this is my CV, please reach out to me. Or you can send us email. Let's say you have a dream company, KPMG or whatever company that you like. You can just send an email, right? Walk-in actually suggests that you're just physically going there and meeting the people, but it can be done online as well. You can just send them a polite email saying that you're interested in a position and these are your qualifications. If there is an opportunity, reach out to you. So that's a nice thing to do, but I don't know how common that is in Sri Lanka. Yes, sometimes it's a good idea. But again, I would say, Udeshi, look at the advert, right? Do you think job advert mentions that are they giving priority to soft skills and hard skills separately? If you have that feeling, yes. But if not, I think you can, it's all about your job advert actually. Look at it carefully, okay? Thank you very much for your kind comments, and I wish all of you all the very best. Uh, do a very good job with your studies and future, and also show people that you are keen and you're actually honestly interested in the jobs that you have a passion, right? Basically, I have been in interview panels, and what we considered was whether this person has any passion for the job, or are they just trying to get a job, right? So the difference is that if you're honestly interested and passionate, I think your CV should show that passionate, right? When all the other CVs are very generic and boring, then we can figure that out. Okay, this is a really genuine person, right? Thank you very much, Isuru, for lovely comments. And I hope you enjoyed the session, and I wish you all the very best for a very bright future. And God bless you too, Isuru. Thank you very much. Thank you, Udeshi. And then thank you to everyone who sent lovely messages. And Farad, thank you very much for your really nice message. Everybody else, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed. You have been a very, very good um, set of participants because some people don't interact, but you have been very, very interactive and asking questions. I always really enjoy when people are actively learning, not passively joining the online sessions because it can be boring also, right? To me as well. So I really enjoyed the session with all of you. You have been a fantastic group of participants, and I'm really happy and I'm thankful to see Sri Lanka Education Division, Minashi, Aruna, and the team IT as well for their fantastic support. So thank you to CS Sri Lanka, and I hope all of you interact and become successful with your career fair. So wish you very, very good luck in the future, and hope to maybe sometimes see you, catch you in the future, probably in another session or two. Right? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And please do fill out the feedback form. So good night and all the very best.